Welcome to Module 3 of the 40 Plus Fit Foundational course, where we are going to be discussing on how you can actually go out and build your own nutrition plan. In the previous module, we learned about how important and what a big factor nutrition plays in your weight loss and weight loss goals. So really, I'm pretty sure that people are waiting with bated breath now to hear how they can actually start putting this into practice to start seeing the results. So without
That's
further ado, let me just pass it on to you, Twain, and then we can all learn something today.
okay. Let me just share the slides up here and we are good to go. So you want to learn how to eat for healthy weight loss. And so that's what we're going to teach you. Basically, how do you build that nutrition plan that works for you? The main reason why we want to teach you the principles and the way to build your own nutrition plan is because instead of giving you a diet, which doesn't work, right? Sorry, which works, but not for long. With the principles, you'll be able to build the skills that you need for long-term success. Okay, so diets are really great short-term. They can get you some really quick results, and that's why people still buy into them because it's a journey that people go through, right? They try different diets, they go through it with some good success, but then they immediately after all, they burn out and then they rebound even worse off. And then it's this yo-yo cycle that we see so many times with a lot of the clients that we talk to. But once they go through that process, they're like, okay, cool. I understand now that the diets don't actually help me in the long run, or they come to revelation, they'd be like, yeah, I need to build something out. So that's why we want to kind of save you that trouble a little bit, and kind of push you into building your own plan so that you can have a system that you can follow for the long term. Okay, and then one that will also continue to evolve with you. But here's a quick disclaimer, you actually need to plan this out. I know effort, right? But it takes less time than you think. And look, like 30 minutes for the rest of the months and weeks ahead, right? I think that's a pretty good return on investment. The other thing also to manage the expectations a little bit is that the reason why people buy into diets a lot is because diets give a lot of quick results up front. Okay, when you do this way, you might experience some good quick results. But the reality is that results usually feel slower at the start when we're doing things correctly. But in the long run, you actually get easier and easier, or it will feel easier to stick with things. Yeah. So there's a bit of expectation management there before we dive into the meat of stuff. As always, there's always something here we need to kind of prove that this works, right? And so you can see this is a screenshot from one of my clients that kind of was sharing her experience about how they are building their own system as well and how they can feel their lifestyle and the mindset are just changing. So they make it very easy for them to not only just have like their fun foods, but also to lead their life kind of normally while still being able to continue seeing results and losing weight. So without further ado, let's jump into the four main principles that are going to guide your planning process. It's very important to understand the principles because the principles are like little compasses that points us in the right direction and teaches us and helps us in the decision-making process when we have to adjust things. So here's are the four things that are going to matter the most in your plan for your long-term sustainable weight loss nutrition. And the first one is the protein and fiber protein and fiber prioritization has to take place in 80% of your meals. So in 80% of your meals, you have to keep focusing on making sure you get in enough protein and fiber. You can have your carbs and fats for sure. You will have some of them, but the main star of the show is protein and fiber. The second principle is that you want to use foods that are actually available to you. And you notice that like sometimes when people teach people how to make meal plans, they tell you, okay, go and do all this meal prep and try to go and build things up, like go and cook all these different meals. You can do that if you have the time for it and the bandwidth for it. But I can tell you, having worked with so many clients, many of them don't have the time for that. So as we have explained in the previous episode, in the previous module, there's no such thing as a good food or bad food. You just want to find the foods that kind of fit within the profiles that you're looking for. And so use the foods that are available to you. For some clients, this means going to the fast food restaurants that are nearby. For some clients, this means going to the hawker centers that are nearby as well. You can eat at these places and still stay on track, which is the whole point. Okay. So the third principle is you want to keep things as simple as possible. And you will understand what I mean later when I go through the step-by-step process. But we don't overcomplicate things. You might be wondering, oh, should I go organic? Should I go, pesticides free or whatever? And like, oh, should I worry about this particular level of a certain element in the food or something? All these things do not matter at this stage. Okay, they might matter at some point way down the line, maybe if you are extremely, I don't know, um, optimized in every other aspect, then maybe this might be something you might want to consider. But at the baseline of it, whatever we're going to tell you in the next like 5 steps, that's all you really need to focus on. And that's what will get you results. And if you do this really, really well, your health markers, everything is probably going to improve. You're going to reach your goal weight and you will already feel that much better. Okay. The last and most important one here is to plan in your fun foods and your occasions. Okay. Because if you don't balance things off where you're eating for the health and the weight loss component of things, you don't balance it off with the fun aspect of things, you are definitely going to burn out really quickly. And so this way we can learn how to actually make life a part of your plan versus life coming in to resist you being able to stick to your plan. And this is through a very simple model called the calorie cycling model, which I'm going to go through right now. Okay, the calorie cycling model, I'm going to go through the idea of it and then a couple of different formats that actually work. So what's calorie cycling? Calorie cycling basically just means some days you have higher calories, some days you have lower calories. It is not a diet. Let me put that and make that clear, okay? It's not a diet. It's just a balance between being relatively strict while maintaining flexibility for real life. Because it's unrealistic to say like every single day go out and eat at a restaurant and party, have fun, and you will still be okay. Yeah, it's very, very unrealistic to say that. I mean, nobody is promising that. But you can have some of these elements if you plan ahead for it. So your calorie needs are going to fluctuate daily anyway. We are all not robots. Not every single day is exactly the same, right? We change some of the foods that we eat daily. Some days are more stressful, some days are less stressful. And some days we walk more, some days we walk less. You know, these things will happen. So it helps you build a better relationship with food if you have control in this way. So here are some quick calorie cycling examples. We have the alternating model, we have the double fasting model, we have the TGIF model. Okay, these are just examples though, because you can build your own model accordingly. But these are just some sample templates that we start people off with. So the alternating model is quite simple. Basically, you alternate, 3 higher days with 4 lower days. So let's say if your calorie target is roughly about 1,300 calories for the week. You want to go 1,500 calories on the high days, maybe 1,100 calories on the low days. Or if you want 2 days and 5 days, you can also do that, right? And you just adjust the models accordingly. I'll go through more specifically about the calorie target and the averaging of it later in the step-by-step process. Now, the TGIF model is actually the most common one that people use. There are 2 variations of this. You can see you either go 4 low days, basically 4 to 5 low days, and then you have 2 to 3 higher days here in the weekends. So people are very routine. They are usually very routine. They work in the office where the work days are really, really busy. It's much easier to stay on plan that way and then relax a little bit on the weekends and refresh themselves mentally and physically as well. The next model here is the double fast model. Now, this one works pretty well for a lot of people that travel or they do shift work, okay, because things just kind of go out of whack with regards to the regular timing of situations. So a lot of times, this is kind of like an intermittent fasting model. Again, not that there's anything like super crazy or beneficial about fasting. It's just a convenient way to go about that calorie management process. So you pick 2 days where you're going to fast for the day, and the other days you just eat at your target range. So this is actually ideal if you travel a lot for work or you work like intermittently busy jobs. For example, I have a lot of doctors, I have a lot of shift workers, clients that are on these kind of models. So now we want to get into the meat of the process. What exactly are you going to do? Okay, thank you so much for listening to all the preamble here, but it's necessary to fully understand the step-by-step process. This is the 5-step process. First, we're going to calculate your target calories because that's what we know as the thing that will help you achieve the calorie deficit, right? The second part is we're going to calculate the protein per meal. Okay, how much protein do you ideally want to have within a day and how much do you want to get at each meal? So you can start to then move on to the third step, which is to decide your weekly meal cycle, after which you're going to then build your meal menu. Goes back to the available restaurants, the things that are usually available to you. How do you adjust from there and pick up and predetermine what you're going to eat? And then the last part here is you're going to go through the planning process for social events. So the first step is really easy. basically you're going to calculate your target calories. Now, these are your target calories for per day. Okay. You take your goal weight, okay, in kilos or pounds. Now, the goal weight here is basically whatever weight you are trying to aim towards. This is just to get you into a starting point. And the reason why we use the goal weight is because the goal weight is going to be under where you currently are at. So if you multiply by the factors that we give here, you're naturally going to be, or you're more likely going to be in a calorie deficit already. Okay, so the factors we're going to multiply, depending whether you choose kilos or pounds, we're going to do it by 24 if you're using kilos, or you're going to do it by 11 if you're using pounds. So the example I give here is if you're currently 70 kilos and you want to push towards 60 kilos, we'll use 60 kilos times 24, and this will be your target calories per day. This is the daily average that you want to hit. So I remember I mentioned earlier, we talked about the daily average. Imagine if you took all 7 days of the week and you added up all the calories that you had and you divide it by 7, it should be roughly around this number. That's the average daily for the week. Once you've got that number, then we just have to calculate how much protein you're going to have per meal. So you just take your goal weight again. In this case, I'm using the same example, 60 kilos, and we're going to multiply that by 1.5 if you're using kilos, or 0.68 if you're using pounds. So if you're using kilo 60 times 1.5, you get 90 grams. This is the minimum total daily protein you need to take in. If you exceed this, hallelujah, like that's great, continue doing that. But you just take this number, you divide it by the number of meals you have in a day. For most people, that's, let's say, 3 meals. And then you have 30 grams per meal. So at every meal, you just want to make sure you have planned in at least 30 grams of protein for that meal. You can go higher than this, but never go below this, okay? Because you need this bare minimum to make sure that your body is optimized. And again, if you remember module 2, to push that thermic effect of food to help you burn a little bit extra. Now, the third step here is you want to pick your meal cycle. So the meal cycle based on the calorie cycling model, again, you can pick the TGIF one, the alternating, the double fast. TGIF is usually the easiest because it's more like a 5 days low, 2 days high kind of model. But hey, customize it according to your lifestyle. Okay. And you can change it sometimes depending on the type of week you might have coming up. You want to set your high days and your low days, so your weekly average is the number that you achieve from step 1. So I give you an example here. Let's say your average was about 1,440 calories. Okay. In that sense, what I did here is I decided, okay, I'm going to have 3 high days, I'm going to have 4 low days. So the 3 high days, I'm going to add an extra 300 calories to each day. And then for the 4 low days, I'm just taking away 200 calories from each day. So you have 1,740, you have 1,240 for the 1,740 for the high days, 1,240 for the low days, and you average that out over the week. That's 1,454. It's more or less close enough to 1,440. All right, so it's a very simple model. Again, you want to go 2 high and 5 low, that's also good. You want to go 1 high and 6 low, so that's probably even better. Again, fit it into your lifestyle. The step 4 here is once you have all those numbers, you can then start to plan your days according to your low days. Now, remember we talked about the amount of protein per meal. You want to make sure that first of all, you pick the restaurants or you pick the options that are very convenient for you, especially if you're eating out a lot. If you're doing your own meal prep, then by all means, you can just use those numbers, search up for some meal prep recipes and get started already. But if you're planning with fast food, you're planning with all this type of stuff, you want to see, okay, how can I modify some of these options so that I can get to that basic protein level? In some cases, you might even find it easier to just say, okay, I'll just drink a protein shake with this and then, just stick within a total calorie count. Yeah, there's so many ways to play around with this. If you want more suggestions, you have any questions, as always, just leave them in the comments. The main idea here is that you want to look at your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, and you want to come up with predetermined meals. So for breakfast, example, I usually recommend clients come up with 3 go-to breakfasts. Most of my clients actually end up just having the same breakfast every day, because for most people, breakfast is the one meal of the day that they don't really care too much about. They get up, eat the same thing, and they just want to get going towards work. So it's the easiest one to get in all the necessary nutrition. Then lunch, usually people are eating out at work. So come up with 5 go-to lunches that are in the food options around where you're at. This could be, let's say, if you are in Southeast Asia, it might be like a hawker center, might be some sort of local food. So you want to think about, like, if I were to buy this food, how would I modify it so that I can get more protein? I give you an example. There's a common meal type called chicken rice in Singapore, right? So that's a great meal to have as a lunch option. You instead get half of the rice for most people, and then maybe you double up on the meat. Get an extra serving of meat, and then you get extra serving of vegetables. And then that would usually fit within most people's meal calorie options. Now, the dinner meal is usually the most flexible one because most people usually have a very flexible dinner. Same thing, you come up with five go-to dinners that fall within your calorie and your protein requirements. And these list of meals are going to form your 80% of the meals for the week. Okay? And once you put up this list here, all you need to do every day is just decide, oh, cool, which one am I going to pick from this list? So you kind of predetermine things and plan ahead and pre-portioned it in a sense, but you also give yourself enough variety that in the moment, on that day, at lunch or dinner, you still have some variety. So it never gets very stale. So once you build your meal menu, you then move on to the last step here, which is to plan in your social events. So this one's pretty simple. Basically, you want to use your higher days for your big social events where you actually want to indulge more. So we plan our meals according to the low days so that we have enough buffer to, count and to track your calories for those bigger meals. And if you can, obviously deciding ahead of time what you will have is probably the best idea. Let's say if you know, okay, I'm going to have date night with my wife or my husband on Saturday. We're going to go to this restaurant. I'm going to eat this like full Japanese 24-course omakase. Okay, great. You decide ahead of time what you're going to have. You can plan that in, and then you can modify the other meals to allow for that buffer. If you are not able to decide ahead of time or you don't have much control over it, which is kind of common too, sometimes you're going out for a birthday dinner, you don't know where the birthday person is going to choose, the kind of stuff, then you can just increase your protein and veg intake for the other meals to just make sure you keep them super lean and reduce the calories to buffer more for this meal. So it's a very fluid system. The only thing you need to do is you just need to get used to using a calorie tracker. We use MyFitnessPal because it has a very robust database, but you can use any other calorie tracker. Plan out your meals. If you want to use MyFitnessPal, make sure number one, you download a free account. Do not sign up for the premium. 100%, please don't waste your money. And then download our MyFitnessPal guide to help you with that process of how to use MyFitnessPal. Okay? So again, it takes a little bit of effort to kind of put this together, but I can tell you 30 minutes of putting this together is super worth it for the ease, of mind, knowing like you already know what you're going to eat for majority of the week. And when you're actually going to go and indulge, this is prudency in spending of your calorie budget, really. And if you think about it from, let's say, like a monetary budget, right? Like there's certain things we want to spend on, certain things we probably can save more money on. That's the kind of concept we want to encourage here. So think in terms of some final tips here. Think in terms of calorie ranges. So you might come up with a super specific sounding number. Don't worry about trying to hit that exact number. Just think of it in terms of a range rather than trying to be too exact. You just need consistency, not precision. Example, let's say per meal, you might calculate out to be something like, oh, I need to get 453 calories per meal or 327 calories per meal. Just think of it as 300 to 350 calories. Okay, cool. As long as I hit within a range, I'm good. If you're talking about the weekly average, the daily average for the week, then instead of 144, oh, maybe you might look at it as long as I fall within 1004 to 1005, then we are good. Okay? Because again, nothing needs to be so precise with our body. Our body is very adaptable. It works within ranges, not exact numbers. So plan more protein for the meals that you have more control over. This is definitely going to be, for most people, things like breakfast and lunch in general. Yeah, the earlier meals in the day usually has a higher success rate of getting all the important stuff in. And then for the more fun meals of the day, the wind down meals at night, you probably can have a little bit more flexibility that way. So take care of the good stuff. Pay your taxes first before you spend the rest of the money. Spend the rest of the calories, right? Yeah. So prioritize eating your veggies and your protein first, or this concept of pre-gaming, especially if you're going out for a big social meal, is basically where you eat first before you go out. And you eat something where, again, it has high in veggies or high in fiber and has protein. The easiest way that a lot of my clients do that is to just drink a protein shake with some psyllium husk in it, and just before they leave the house. And then once they leave the house, by the time they reach the restaurant, they're like, oh man, I actually feel relatively well level in terms of my hunger, my appetite, so that I'm not going to over order. I'm not going to, eat with my eyes kind of thing, right? Where we get so hungry and then we end up ordering more than we can handle, and then we feel bad about it because we want to finish everything. Yeah, if not, we are wasting food, right? So this is a very easy trick to kind of prevent you from doing that. So those are the tips. Uh, Hopefully this was informative. I wish you all the best in putting together this plan. As always, if you have questions, we are definitely going to answer them in the comments. But I'm pretty sure Mike has some questions of his own. So, Mike, what do you think?
Yes, yes, yes. I do have some. But before we get jump into any kind of questions or anything like that, I just want to say is that the download link for the MyFitnessPal guide that Twain was
Yes.
talking about, we'll put that down in the description below. So do check that out. It's completely free, so no worries there. The other part that I also want to just highlight here is I love it that it's the concept of principles rather than, okay, we're going to tell you now to do another diet. And the reason why is because it was just recently. I'm usually for those that ever follow our podcast, 40 Plus Fit podcast, you'll understand that I'm a person that's very skeptical about people that come and talk about social media. I heard this on social media. I did this. This person said on social media. Very skeptical about these kind of gurus. And so there was one that actually did say something a little while ago that spoke to me. And it was saying is like the concept of dieting, why it's a very difficult thing to do is because in 2018, there was a study that was actually done. And in the study, they actually highlighted that there was another meta analysis that they did of 29 long term weight loss studies. And they found that more than half of the people that lost their weight was regained within 2 years' time.
Yeah.
When you jump to 5 years, it jumps up to 80% of the people that have lost weight, they had actually regained the weight or more. So
Mhm.
when we rely on diets, restrictive diets, it's really not a long-term solution. And you highlighted that in your presentation. It's
Yeah.
really not a long-term solution. The reason being is because one, it's restrictive. Two, we are emotional creatures, you know. So once you start restricting our stuff, it's like, oh, I'm not living anymore. Everything is like, oh, why do I even want to do this? I might as well just die.
Yeah.
And then you get emotional, and then you reach out, you start eating this, start eating that, and boom, there you go. Within 2 years, your weight is back. But when you reframe it and like the way that you explained it, it's you're not actually going on a diet, but you're taking on these principles and building habits with these principles so that these habits actually become part of your lifestyle. So then you start relying on your systems, your lifestyle systems, rather than on your choices, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And I find it's like once you start to do that, that's when you start to see long term success rather than just the short term, let's get the bikini bod or the beach bod or whatever you want to do for summer.
Yeah.
But that's where you start to see the success. And
Well, I
whenever
think
I talk to people about this kind of thing, is that's the one thing that I'll always try and highlight is don't look at this that we're trying to put you on a diet, but look at this as these are the principles that you can apply and build habits from this in order for you to achieve your long-term success.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
you looked like you wanted to say something.
Oh no, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, that's really the main thing that helps people sustain it, right? And kind of sustain the rigors of trying to maintain the end result. Because most people rebound once they finish the diet because they feel like, oh, this thing has finished. But the question is then like, what did I learn from it? Like, how have I changed from it? And if the change is only external, it has not been internal, then internally you're still the same person, which ultimately is going to impact the behaviors, the actions, the habits that you do, which led you to where you started off from in the first place. So a lot of the long-term change we always say is like it just starts from internal. That's why we go internally and say, let's talk about principles, let's talk about how you look at these things, what's your decision-making process in this regard. And then that's what the process should teach you over time.
Cool. Right, the next question, well, probably the first question, should I say, because the other one is just me babbling. But the first question would be, and this is a personal question, but I'm sure maybe some others here in Southeast Asia can actually get something from this.
Yeah.
When you said like chicken rice, right? If you want to improve on it, so to speak, you halve the rice, up the meat, and increase the veggie, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask the question: do bean sprouts are they considered veggie?
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, bean sprouts definitely are some sort of a veg, right? They just like large majority of water, enough insoluble fiber in there. It's worth it if you like it. If you don't like it, it's eat some other veg, man. You
All
know.
right. So if I throw on two handfuls of bean sprouts, I can eat the chicken rice guilt free, is it?
Well, you probably need a lot more bean sprouts to kind of keep up the volume of it. But yeah, like I think the idea of eating something guilt-free should always be there, whether it's something that you enjoy or whether it's something like supposedly it's a more of a junky food or not. Obviously, we talked about this in the previous module, which is the good versus bad food. But the idea that you should feel guilty for eating certain foods should not exist with this process, mainly because you have planned for it and you're very intentional. Guilt implies that you're doing something wrong, but you're not really doing anything wrong. If you're eating it according to what you have already planned. If I already planned to have this chocolate cake with this meal because this was one of the things that I planned into my calorie range, yeah, then why should I feel bad about it? I've
Mm.
eaten my protein, I've hit my protein target, I've hit my fiber target,
So,
right? I'm still within my
mm.
calorie amount. Yeah, I can
so
have that
that
chocolate
would
cake.
lead into the next question then, is that how do you handle the failure? So let's say, because you apportion the calories, right?
Yes,
So let's say it's 1500 calories for the day.
yes.
My plan said this is a 1450, 1450 day. But I went out with some friends and I hit 2450 calories instead.
Okay.
So how would you handle that failure? Would you then restrict the next day, or do you just pick it up the next day and carry on as if nothing's happened?
I would always say that the short answer is just pick up the next day and just move forward. Okay. And this goes back to the main principle of like the common fallacy a lot of people fall victim to, which is the sunk cost fallacy, where their previous past actions, because they feel they've invested the time, the money, or even just the moral, cost that they've already paid, that they have to continue being stuck with that decision. And so the principle here that I would actually recommend instead is to not be anchored by past decisions that are already passed, to learn from it and to move forward. So in this case of the blowing the budget, so to speak, right? Um, if you went out with your friends and you realize like, oh man, I actually ate more than I did, you have to reflect on that and use it as a learning point to ask yourself, what happened here? Did I do it intentionally? Right? Did I make a decision on that day and say like, you know what? I know I'm supposed to eat 1450, but this is a special occasion, my friends. I want to enjoy this. Okay. Then you take responsibility for that and you say, okay, so because I want to enjoy this, it was a bit more impromptu. I can modify my plans moving forward. I can swap it out with the other day I was planning the further day, like Saturday, I was planning to maybe just have my own personal indulgence in this extra ice cream or something, right? But like, I think the meeting with my friend was a lot more important. So I'm okay with swapping that over there, and then I'll just have a much like a tighter day on Saturday. So if you can look at it from the very objective point of view, in a way that you reflect, you own the actions that you took, and it makes sense to you with no extra negative guilt or fear, you're totally fine. You can do that. You can so-called move things around. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of flexibility. Where it becomes an issue is where you are making these decisions out of fear, where you're like, oh no, I blew the budget today. Oh shit. What should I do? What should I do? No, I'm just going to like shift the Saturday. I'm just going to use up the Saturdays and just put it over here and put it one over there so that I can kind of stay on track and so I can make up for it. Okay. Even though it might technically be the same action, the motivation and the thing that you're training in your brain, which is way more important, is wrong, right? Because it's not it's an intention that's going down a different path from what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve more mental flexibility and with keeping with your model, but the other pathway you're going down right now is one where you're still rooted in fear, you're still trying to overcompensate, you're not actually learning or owning up to your actions. You're always thinking, oh, there's a way out of this, right? So I think it really comes down to the mental perspective of like how intentional were you about it? Do you own that taking responsibility for the action, and do you own that event? Yeah. Um, yeah. So that's my that's my relatively long-winded answer. But for the most part, for most people, I would usually ask them this simple guiding questions. Do you regret yesterday? Do you regret the event? If you could go back in time, what would you change, if anything? If the answer is, you know what, I don't. I don't regret it. I enjoyed my time with my friends. Cool, accept that, move on, and then do exactly what I told you. Say like, yeah, cool, then I can swap it over, or I can try to even my calories a bit more throughout the rest of the days, whatever. Right? There's always a solution that we can move forward with if we move forward in with the correct mindset. If you feel like, oh, I would change something or I would do something different, then you know, like, okay, cool. This is a lesson to be learned here. Maybe when you go out with your friends, they tend to peer pressure you into taking more things. Maybe your lesson is you need to learn how to say no. Draw your boundaries. You didn't actually want to eat this food that you didn't really even enjoy in the first place. Just say no. Your friends can accept that, right? If they can't accept that, should they even be your friends? So these are things that you can learn from the experience.
Hmm. Yeah. All right, let's jump on. I don't want to make it too long. Um,
Mm.
there's one thing is like you can always hear when people start living more healthy, so to
Yeah.
speak. They'll always say, "Oh, I need to increase my fruits and veg," right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we'll say is like we demonize rice because rice has got carbs,
Yeah.
but we're eating our fruits, which also has carbs,
Yeah.
right? So one over the other. Now, my question really comes in here is that well, probably the two-part question. One is that actually the valid way of looking at things with regards to fruits over rice? Like fruit is a more superior food than rice. And two is the concept of fiber and carbs. Because like if you're consuming carbs, but the carbs has a high amount of fiber, then it
Yeah.
adjusts the amount that you actually allocate into your calories that you're actually consuming, right? There's a little bit of a difference there.
Oh, yeah,
Perhaps you
yeah.
can explain and just
So
break,
this would be
yeah.
more of a um, micro detail, I would say,
Yeah.
where I answer the second question first, which is I think you're asking about if the food has a lot more fiber, then the carb amounts adjust or something. So we don't actually have to worry about that. All we need to know is like if I eat this apple, how much calories are there in the apple? Just search that on my fitness pal, it'll tell you, and that's it. Like don't worry about net carbs or whatever. Just look at that, but you can also look at your fiber amount and just say, am I eating enough fiber? I think we did a whole podcast episode on that. We can search the archives for that, or maybe even link it down below. I'm not too sure. But yeah, don't worry about like making that extra calculations there for the carbs. So just take the calories for that fruit or whatever it is and just eat it. Now, in terms of the quality of the foods here, again, the idea is always look at foods on a spectrum of nutrition. What is the nutritional profile of rice compared to the nutritional profile of different fruits, right? Let's say your average fruit that has a bit more fiber, a bit more vitamins in them. It probably has a different nutritional profile. To say it's superior or better is probably not very helpful. It really depends on what number one, you prefer to eat, and number two, how it fits into your caloric budget. Okay. That being said, I would always recommend people go a bit more towards fruits because if you look at carbs, under carbs, there are generally three umbrellas, three categories. There are three categories under the carb umbrella. So there's your starchy carbs, the most dense variation of carbs. Again, your rice, your potato, I guess, your higher starchy content ones. You have the fruits, which have a lot more water. They have carbs in them, which people mistakenly think, oh, it's sugar is very bad for you, but it's not. Okay, I understand you, it's not. Um, but it has a lot more water content. So by volume, it doesn't have as many calories. So that's like the second category. And the third category is your veggies. Your veggies essentially have like almost negligible calories to them, and they just have tons of fiber. So you obviously will want to pick more from the veggies and the fruits for that reason, because they're going to give you a decent amount of volume for the amount of calories that you're getting. It's a great return on investment. It's a good value in that sense. So, for example, if you eat 1 kilo of strawberries, that's only about 330 calories, something along those lines. Whereas to get 330 calories from rice, you would probably eat something like 300 grams of rice. Yeah. So that's the difference. That's all. It's not that one food is better or worse than the other.
All right, and then the final thing we just want to challenge here is the water. We get a
Okay.
lot of talk all around as
Yep.
to like what's the amount you should be drinking, just to cover your hydration
Mm.
needs.
Yeah.
Versus there's other people now that are talking. It's like that amount of water is like the old adage of 8 glasses of water a day is
Mm.
actually not sufficient. You should be drinking more than that, depending on your body weight, depending on your activity level, depending on your geographical area that you're
Yeah.
living in. All of this should play a part, but generally, the fact of the matter is that 8 glasses is insufficient to really cover our
Yeah.
hydration needs today. What would your thoughts be on that?
Well, I would say that that there's where I would agree is that yeah, it's subject to all those factors you mentioned, your body weight, how big you are, right? What your activity levels are like, and of course the geographical area that you kind of stay in, among other factors as well. All of these things are related mainly to just like how much water are you losing in a day versus how much are you actually taking in. So again, similar concept to calories, energy balance, all that. But to simplify things, even we could discuss these things to the infinite detail because every individual is so different. But to simplify it, honestly, you just need to get a range, right, of anywhere between most people, the average person, anywhere between like 2 liters of water to 2.5 liters of water a day is a very good starting point. Okay. If you're super active, you might need to go up to like 4 liters perhaps, but you can only know by doing it yourself and trying it out. But 2 to 2.5 is probably good enough. There is a difference between like adequate hydration and optimal hydration. Adequate hydration essentially is you just drinking enough so that your body can kind of survive. But if you really want to optimize your weight loss and your fat loss and the health and recovery of your body, you need to stay, I would say, maximally hydrated. And so that oftentimes is way more than what, papers would say is the baseline level you need to take in. Because a lot of times when people talk about the baseline level, where the 8 glasses came from is that they misinterpreted the research um, as you need to drink 8 glasses of water, when the actual research study itself was saying that the equivalent of water we need on the daily to survive is about 8 glasses for the average person. And that water that we get can come from everything, not just plain water, but can come from everything that we eat as well. The food that we eat also has water. Fruits, especially, have a great source of water. The bean sprouts you mentioned earlier has a fantastic amount of water in there as well. The soups that you drink, all these stuff all has liquids in them. So all these things also kind of count towards the 8 glasses. That's why some people can go the whole day without drinking very much water, 1 glass in the morning, and then at night they're like, oh man, I'm a little bit thirsty, right? And then they drink a glass of water and that's it. They're done for the day. But they still eat regularly and all. So like people like that, yeah, you might pee out super yellow pee or something, but they're adequately hydrated in the sense that they're not going to die from dehydration. Yeah. But we're not here for adequate. We're here for optimizing up your body for the best results, right? So the effort you put in for the best return. So it's sustainable in the long run. So you must find a sweet spot for you of like how much water you can potentially drink. The most amount of water you can potentially drink. That's I would say arbitrarily below 4 liters, because for most people after 4 liters it's probably not necessary. That's a more specialized group already of like very active athletes or something. But yeah, so start from 2 liters, slowly work your way up and see like where's the sweet spot for you. Stick with that, and then you're good.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully this was a helpful and enlightening episode. I'm sure we all learned a little bit here and there, if not a lot for some of us. But in the next module, we will be covering how recovery matters.
Yep.
So if you have any questions with regards to this module, um, building your nutrition plan, do let us know down in the comments. Other than that, we'll look forward to seeing you in the next module.
See you guys.